Here we go. Celtics post-game live, Jack. They won. All right.
Finally.
Thankfully, my goodness. It was, I'm just thankful they got the W. I don't know what to say. It was scary there a little bit at the end, but they do pick up the win over the Hawks. Split the series, not what you want, but they stay over 500, thankfully. Guys, Ev's not here today. We'll still be in the chat. Jack, can you handle the chat stuff from there?
Yeah, for sure. I got.
Ev always reads the chat. We want to make this a chat-based thing. Ev, where you at, bro? Ev is, Ev's on a vacation. Okay, Ev deserves a little vacation. So you got KJ and Jack today. KJ and Jack handling the duties. Okay, we're filling in for. We'll make sure to read your chats. Okay, we're gonna keep an eye out on that. But Jack, your takeaways from the game. Like I said, a little scary at the end, but looked really good for the first three quarters.
Yeah, like you said, they almost blew it again. A terrible fourth quarter. We can focus on the positives, like you said, though. They moved the ball better. Kemba Walker looked amazing, which was, really nice to see. Obviously, he had a struggle. I'm just saying, the trade Kemba people, where are you at now? Call them out. That was the most absurd movement I think I've ever seen. Obviously, you can always think, okay, maybe, you don't want this big contract. You can think of it in that sense. But to think there were actually people who didn't think Kemba would be able to get back, to that sort of not even all-star, just productive, which he was tonight. That's crazy. Dude's coming off knee surgery. Obviously, he's got to get back into the rhythm, and we saw that tonight. So that was really refreshing.
Yeah, guys, Ev's on a little bit of vacation. He's earned it. He's earned it with the post-game streams. All he does, he comes in every night. So, we needed to fill in for him. But, I honestly thought, I thought it was, for the first three quarters, it was a great performance from the Celtics. And you want to talk about, in the first quarter, I'm just going to give this guy a shout out. Tristan Thompson in the first quarter, I thought he was maybe the best Celtic. And later on, Capela certainly went off, and we'll talk about that. But starting it out, I was really impressed with the way Thompson played in that first quarter. 7 points, 3 rebounds. Again, it fell off. And then Rob Williams came on, and he did some stuff tonight too that we should talk about. But so for both of those guys, I didn't love it throughout, but they both flashed tonight. Mm-hmm. You have anything to say about either of those two, Thompson?
You froze for a sec. I didn't know if I froze or you froze, so that was my bad. No, yeah, all the bigs were great tonight. Throw Daniel Tice in there too. He was amazing. It was just a great night overall for the big man position. Obviously, you had Tice throwing lobs to Thompson and Time Lord. You had Thompson getting hyped in the fourth quarter, throwing lobs to Tice. It was great all around. Tice had 14. Tristan had 17. Time Lord had 12. I don't know when the last time all three of them had over 10 was. I doubt that they, ever had over 10. So it's really impressive in that sense. All of them fighting on the glass, all of them passing. Tyson Thompson combining for 7 assists is something that I just never expected to see with them in a Celtics uniform. So that just goes to show the ball movement is key to winning for the Celtics, and they showed that tonight. And I think that was probably the biggest reason they were able to get the win, despite almost crumbling in the fourth.
Yeah, and we got the trade Kemba, sarcastic in the chat, some of the trade Kemba calls. Kemba, did I get fired? Did I get canceled? Did I get canceled? No. Ev's out for the night. He asked us to fill in, but we got the sarcastic trade Kemba's going around there in the chat. How about Kemba's performance? Not just overall, but let's just talk about the first half. 20 points in the first half. I know our guy Birkin, I don't know if Birkin's in the chat tonight, but Birkin always says, that 40-point Kemba game is coming. It looked like it was going to be here tonight. He was playing that well. But obviously, it's still, a great performance from him. But 20 in the first half, that's really what I'm about to talk about. He came out on fire. And that second quarter especially was something to watch.
Mm-hmm. And the best part about it wasn't just coming from behind the three-point line. Obviously, he played really well. He shot the ball really well. But he was driving and attacking the paint with efficiency too, which is something that I think he was struggling with the most since coming back this season. Obviously, he was getting blocked a ton. I know our friend Sam brings that up all the time. But this game, he looked smart. He looked aggressive. He was making good passes, which is good too. And he just looked like the Kemba that was on the Charlotte Hornets making all-star teams. And that's what the Celtics need if they want to compete for a championship this season, next season, and with Kemba on the roster.
Yeah, and that three that he had, then come back down on the next possession or 1 possession after, and then had the and one. And that's when he put in that and one. That's when I know you guys probably thought it too. When he put that in, you were thinking, oh boy, this is the Kemba Walker we know. And you said it. If he can continue to play like that, they can get back to being, I'm not going to say a championship contender, but they can get back to being one of the best teams in the East.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And we had a comment in the chat I wanted to talk about. I think this is very possible. I am on this train. I am on the Robert Williams hype train. After the performance from Thompson and Tice tonight, I don't think it'll happen soon, but I am confident that if Rob can continue to develop, continue to not jump at every pump fake and improve at defensive awareness, I think he has a legitimate chance to be a starting center with the Celtics in the future. I'm not saying it'll even be this season, but like in the future moving forward, I think it is possible that Robert Williams could be a starting center and an effective one.
I mean, I think he had 3 blocks and 2 steals at halftime, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. He ended only with 4 blocks and 2 steals, so he didn't follow it through. But I mean, he was really good tonight. Bit on 1 or 2 Trae Young pump fakes, which is going to happen. Trae Young. It's not. I mean, Rob bites a lot, and we get on Rob for biting a lot on the pump fakes. But Trae Young gets a lot of people. We know that, so we're not going to really dig into him for it. But even still, a really good performance from Rob tonight. And, of course, I think maybe Scal and Gorman overreacted a little bit to it, but the go-go gadget arm.
Yeah.
You're with me. The reaction was a little over the top, right?
I mean, that was pretty impressive. I'm not even going to lie. I mean, I certainly can't do anything like that. He got up so high to grab that ball. It was just something unlike anything else on the Celtics roster. Like, obviously, Tristan Thompson don't have that hops. Clearly, Clint Capela didn't either. So the fact that Robert Williams, he's only 6'8", too. He's not like 7 feet tall with those hops. He's like 6'8" to go up, grab that, throw it down off of what was not a great pass from Jaylen Brown. And maybe they did overhype it a little. I think Scal and Mike love Robert Williams a little bit. I think the whole NBC Sports Boston crew does. But that was an impressive play. Like I said, I think he can start in the future. But with the way that the Bigs play tonight overall, I don't think that'll be soon.
And there's Birkin. We're talking about Time Lord for you, Birkin. But Steven asked in the chat how we felt about Nesmith's minutes tonight. Nesmith, 19 minutes, I believe. It was 19 minutes, wasn't it? And only 3 points, 4 rebounds, 1 of 4 shooting. But really, the Celtics really, in the last few games here, seem committed to getting him on the floor, getting him reps, really trying to get him going from that standpoint. And, see if, I guess, they can get him enough experience to make, their 14th overall pick, their first-round pick, someone that can consistently stick in the rotation, but, maybe not a great performance tonight, but speaks to their commitment level to Nesmith, I suppose, that he's out there that much today.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I wanted to address this as well. It's talking about the rookies. Am I worried about PP? I feel like with the way that Celtics have been playing so up and down this season, it's become just a trend. And I'm not calling you out at Skier. I think it's reasonable. He did have a rough shooting night, but it's become a trend to just panic about players after one bad game. Pritchard's been arguably one of the most consistent players all season. I'm not worried. Every player has a bad shooting night, especially rookies. He was bound to hit the rookie wall eventually. I'm not saying this is it, but even if he does slowly decline in his production, I think Pritchard has a great future in Boston, and I think he can be a great point guard, and I'm not worried by one bad shooting performance. And Nesmith, on that account, that over-under, how many times is he going to hit the deck in one game? That is becoming more and more true every game.
Yeah, if you guys don't know, I forget who it was. Birkin, you might remember, but maybe it's I forget who it was, but someone in our pregame stream said over-under 2.5 awkward falls from Nesmith tonight, and we had a good laugh about it. And then during the game, we were watching it together and saying, that's 1, that's 2. He kept falling over. And then tonight, you notice it again.
Yeah, I mean, great minutes from Nesmith. It's just he's always hustling, always going for those blocks, and he is he's anything but afraid to put his body on the line for a team, which is very Marcus Smart-esque, which is something we need back.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that. You could also say he's just a tad clumsy. Good
spin on it. I'm putting a good spin on it.
I'm all for the praise. He's certainly, he's playing well and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, just a tad bit, uncoordinated there from Nesmith as well. But all these guys played great. We mentioned Kemba's second quarter, and then in the third quarter, it was Jaylen Brown, who was really, really great. I think he had that stretch where, almost 3 straight threes. I think there was a Thompson bucket in there. But that's when he took over. And, he didn't have the best game tonight overall. But you saw a lot of Tatum, a lot of Kemba, and a good amount of Jaylen Brown, too, all playing well together for – one of the few, if not the first time this season that they've all played, a really solid game.
Yeah, the other one I cited, I think, was the Nuggets game. They all looked okay, but Tatum was a little inefficient. This was probably the first one.
And Tatum both shot 33% in that game. So, I mean, this one was probably their best as a trio so far.
Mm-hmm. And whether or not Kemba can shoot 62.5% every game, I doubt. But this was a very good performance for all of them. I'm glad they could click. And whether or not they're gelling together on the court is a different story. I think it was a lot of, like you said, Brown took over in the second quarter, Tatum took over in the first, Kemba took over throughout the game. I want to see more of the ball movement that they showed in that first quarter where they were all playing together, running in transition. I'm not saying they didn't do that, but when the fourth quarter rolled around and they kind of reverted back a little bit to that, okay, Tatum, go get us a bucket. Brown, go get us a bucket. We saw what happened, and it wasn't a good thing. So I want to see them take that performance they had in the first quarter and stretch that out for an entire game. That's the ideal Celtics team.
And the fourth quarter, really, I want to talk about a little bit too, because the Hawks start to come back. And really, I mentioned Capela off the top because he was the one that was killing them that fourth quarter. Trae Young certainly was going off, but it was really Capela, what he was doing on the glass and everything. And, I think there was one play I noticed where they ran a pick and roll with them, and I think they were supposed to switch. Tice switched. Tatum didn't. Tatum chased Young around, and he got an easy dunk. And Tice and Tatum didn't even look at each other. They just looked like they couldn't care less. They looked like, we're going to win this game anyway. Who cares what's happening?
This was the early on rebound too. That was early in the game, right?
No. That was fourth quarter, about 6-7 minutes to go. Trae Young ran a pick and roll with Clint Capela, and Tice was ready. Tice switched it. Tatum didn't, and Capela got a wide open dunk on a dump off from Trae Young. And shortly thereafter, I think Young hits the three, and then the Celtics take the timeout. And at that point, Atlanta subbed out Clint Capela, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Why are you subbing Clint Capela out? And they subbed him out for John Collins, and then Collins is on the floor for 3 minutes, and then with 1:30, they put Capela back in. And I'm thinking, Capela was killing them. Capela was your second best player, if not your best player tonight. Mm-hmm. The Celtics couldn't stop him. Why are you taking him off the floor when even to rest is inexcusable? You're down double digits with a few minutes to go. You can't take that guy out.
No, yeah, and Bruno Fernando played solid minutes backing up Capela. I'll say that, but Capela was the heart and soul of the Hawks in that game. Trae Young was fine.
I'm gonna move some stuff here, so just keep talking to me a second.
Yeah. So Capela had 8 offensive rebounds. I think it was. It was just he was the entire reason the Hawks were in the game at points. I feel like, and like you said, when they took him out, it was just not a good look. I don't understand the move, but the one play I was thinking you were talking about was in the first quarter where I think Tice was trying to block out Capela, and it just wasn't working because Capela is obviously much bigger, much stronger than Daniel Tice. That's just a fact. And Jalen and Jayson were kind of standing there watching it happen, and Jalen could have easily gone in and grabbed that ball, but they just kind of let it happen. So I was confused at that point. But no, yeah, in the fourth quarter, the Trae Young, Clint Capela pick and roll, I think it's a big reason they traded for Clint Capela last season. And I was a huge fan of the move at the time. I thought they got him for basically nothing. I think they gave up a second rounder and Evan Turner for Clint Capela, which is kind of ridiculous value. Yeah. And he's currently leading the league in rebounds, leading the league in offensive rebounds, and third in the league in blocks. So an all-defensive center for a second and Evan Turner that can run the pick and roll at an elite level with a young point guard, and the Celtics just didn't defend it in the fourth quarter. And it's just maybe, like you said, they thought they had it in the bag. Clearly they did not, but luckily they were able to bring the energy back around late in the fourth and get it done. But Clint Capela is a small candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. I'll give him all the praise in the world.
Yeah, he's been spectacular. And then really, one of the guys who saved the Celtics down the stretch was Daniel Tice. Daniel Tice, a few big buckets, had that tip rebound. Down the stretch of that fourth quarter on offense, he made some big plays too. And that was with Capela off the floor, which is another reason. I don't think Atlanta was winning that game either way, but why take out Clint Capela if you're the Hawks at that point? That's really what it comes down to. But Tice played great. More than chat, it's gear. Lots of Celtics fans seem to forget Pritchard is a rookie. Him making rookie mistakes doesn't worry me. And that's true. And Pritchard was a guy, he didn't have the best night tonight. And I want to pull up if we can here. Let's see if I can manage it. I know Ev always pulls up the stats. I want to see if I can figure out how to do that myself. Here we go.
A little screen share?
Yeah, a little screen share action.
Screen share action. There it is.
So, and Pritchard, again, didn't have the best night tonight. We see John Collins, by the way, who, again, this is what I wanted to bring up too. So they take Capela off the floor. Look at the plus minuses here for Atlanta starters. -23, -24, -26, -28. Capela, -4. Capela was a big part of their comeback. And they just, that's even more why I don't understand why they're coming. Aren't those stunning, those plus minuses to you? Seriously.
I mean, yeah, and maybe that's why Nate McMillan's not a head coach in the NBA anymore. Lloyd Pierce is not with the team at the moment. So, maybe that's a small part of it. But no, yeah, Clint Capela being the only one even close to a positive plus minus really just shows how badly the Hawks starters plays. Because then if you look at the bench, right, Danilo Gallinari was a +9, which is wild because Danilo Gallinari shot what from the field? 2 of 14.
Yeah.
He was +9. That tells you how bad the starting lineup was, right? Solomon Hill +12, Tony Snell +11. The Hawks starters did not come to play tonight, and if they did, the Celtics lose this game. I'm not saying the Celtics didn't play solid defense, they didn't play good offense, but if the Hawks starters were even competent tonight, the Celtics don't win this game. So as much as it was nice for the Celtics to get back on track, I'm looking more at the fourth quarter as a negative than I am looking at the rest of the game as a positive.
And Birkin saying Tice saved the game. It's true. Tice was that good down the stretch. He said, I can't wait for Romeo to come back after the All-Star game. I mean, we'll be unstoppable. We know Birkin loves Romeo. Sam, I still think we need Drummond after seeing all the second chance points by Capela. Now, Jack, I'll ask you that. In this most recent stretch, have you come around at all to the idea of Andre Drummond?
Not even in the slightest. Andre Drummond is not a good center. He's a solid rebounder. He's a great rebounder. But he's not a good defensive center. Just because a player gets blocks does not mean they're a good defender. Hassan Whiteside led the league in blocks last season, not even close to a defensive player of the year candidate, right? Rudy Gobert is averaging like 1.5 blocks, which is not near the top of the league. It's like, it's solid, but it's not like top 5. And he's a defensive player of the year candidate. Blocks and defense do not correlate exactly. So when you look at the stats and say, oh, Andre Drummond's averaging 97 steals and 32 blocks a game, he's definitely a good defender. Robert Williams can average the most blocks in the league, but he still bites on pump fakes. That doesn't show up in the box score. You got to look deep into it. Andre Drummond is not the solution. Yes, it's geared. Thank you. Exactly. This is what we're going to get from Andre Drummond. We're going to get an inefficient center who can grab rebounds. That's it.
Oh, boy. I think that's right. He has some similarities there. But, I understand what you guys are saying, and I mostly agree. I will say, Jack, that I've warmed up to it just like a fraction of a percent. Just like not totally, but and this could just be Cleveland throwing this out there to drive up the price. But did you see today the report that 10 teams were semi-interested in Andre Drummond?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, for like a second-round pick. I'll take Andre Drummond for a second-round pick, but
will you really? I mean, I know that they can't technically absorb him into the trade exception, but if it just, let's play in fantasy land here. If it was like just a second-round pick, you want Andre Drummond on your team?
The thing is,
because you sounded like one of those guys that's like, I don't want to touch Andre Drummond ever, but now it's you're saying for a second-round pick I would take him. So would you really?
I'll clear this up. It's impossible for the Celtics to get Andre Drummond. Let me start with that. Unless you want to trade Kemba for Andre Drummond, it's not going to happen. It is physically impossible.
Can I say something real quick? Because I had this thought, and I don't think I've ever seen this. But let's just, because Andre Drummond's close to the trade exception, right?
You can't combine players with trade exception.
No. What I was going to say. Can he restructure his contract so he would fit within the trade exception? I don't think he can, but it doesn't. It seems like it's something you can do in football, I know, but I've never seen anyone like give back money on their salary within the year in the NBA. I've never seen that before, so I don't know.
I don't think that can be done. I'm not positive, but I don't think that they can do that.
But that would certainly be interesting. But anyway, Andre Drummond. For a
I'm
second,
currently looking up Andre Drummond stats.
For a second, you can't say no to him, but we can hope another team at the top of the East overpays for him. We'll see. Blake Griffin, he gets bought out. Absolutely, Sebastian. Blake Griffin's a great buyout candidate, as we've talked about before. Even if not Drummond, the Celtics need a big-bodied rebounder for center. What do you say?
You're on the Blake Griffin train if he gets bought out.
I actually, for the minimum or whatever, I'll take Blake Griffin.
Really?
Yes, because, I mean...
I'd rather have Andre Drummond than Blake Griffin.
That's interesting. I mean, but it's, again, the salary consideration for me. And it's going to be a consideration for them because they're so close to the cap. And they're close to being hard capped here is what I should say. But... one of the things that I look up at the Celtics is, like we've talked about before, wing scoring. I talked about it in the pregame, wing scoring. And is Blake Griffin giving you 20? No. But Blake Griffin can score better than Semi Ojeleye. Like as a bench scorer, I like the idea of Blake Griffin.
Not KJ. How many dunks does Blake Griffin have this season?
0. But he's still a crafty player. He can shoot a little bit. He can shoot enough, and he's not bad with the ball. Like really, if you were getting him for free, you wouldn't take Blake Griffin.
It's tough. He's nowhere.
Jack,
even.
Can I tell you something real quick? The Lakers are going to want him. The Heat are going to want him. Teams are going to want Blake Griffin. And I'm not saying he's going to be an all-star away from the Pistons, because I know, I have some Pistons friends that get mad about this when people say he's going to be better when he's not with the Pistons. And I'm not saying he's going to return to his all-star form, but could he be a little invigorated playing for a playoff team as opposed to a basement-dwelling Eastern Conference team? Could he play just a fraction better if he was with the Celtics, especially in a role where he's at times surrounded by Tatum, Kemba, Brown? Yeah, I think so.
I guess maybe. His shot this season is just so off. He's shooting below 40% from 2. He's a fine ball handler, but all he does is sit on the perimeter and brick threes. That's all Blake Griffin does. And we saw that when he played the Pistons. He had no role in the Pistons beating the Celtics. That was Sadiq Bey, Jeremy Grant, Mason Plumlee when he played, and Isaiah Stewart. Blake Griffin had no part in that, and Derrick Rose when he played. But Blake Griffin just put a pin in it. I got you.
No. I was going to say something else, but we'll finish your point. Go ahead, Jack. I'll let you finish.
I was just saying, I just think he would be useless. I think there are much better options, even in free agency. I couldn't name them off the top of my head, but I've looked at the list before. It just, I'm not a Blake Griffin fan.
All right. Birkin saying Time Lord is our big. We love it, Birkin. Put a pin in Sebastian's comment is what I was going to say. We are going to get to that in a second. But first, I want to finish up with the box score. Finish up where we were talking about. So Capela comes out for Collins. Collins, you mentioned Gallinari terrible in this game. John Collins, 3 of 13. And people have talked about, getting John Collins to the Celtics. So he comes in for Capela. What a disastrous decision. And I think we talked about last game. We said, John Collins audition tape for the Celtics. If this was an audition tape, he's not getting the part. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, no, I feel like this was more of the reason I think the Hawks are shopping him in the first place. Maybe he's just a very hot and cold player. I'm not going to lie and say I've watched a ton of Hawks games this season, but it seems like he's either really on, he's making those cuts, he's trying really hard, or he's just kind of lackluster, which is what we saw tonight. So if that's the type of John Collins, I think that's the last thing the Celtics want to invest in. Although I think he can be a better player. I don't think this was a true showing of how good John Collins can be. It was probably just an off night. I'm not opposed to trading for John Collins if we want to get into the TP anytime soon. It's just a matter of what the price would be for Atlanta.
And Dead Fishing, was that our troll from the last time? They should trade Kemba for Drummond. I don't know, but I don't like that. We're not going to talk about that. Okay, let's finish up with the stats here. Tristan Thompson, as we mentioned, the great game from him. I mentioned his great first quarter, 17 points, 8 of 9 shooting. I mean, in the first quarter, I was getting ready to say, if he's going to continue to play like this might be his best game as a Celtic. And I mean, you could argue that it was. I mean, defensively, not so much, but on the offensive end, he was great.
Oh, yeah, Tristan Thompson was awesome. At the very, very start of the game, I was worried he was doing a little bit too much. He was holding the ball he was doing that thing where he holds the ball the whole possession, but as the game went on, he kind of got into the flow of things. He kind of showed why the Celtics traded for him, getting those rebounds, hustling, scoring in the post. I will say, I wish there was a stat to see how many times Tristan Thompson has gotten offensive rebound and passed out, because I don't think that number is very high. Those hooks have been going in more and more for him, though, so I'll give him props there. It's just, I think that'd be a funny stat, but Tristan Thompson was great tonight. The entire big man lineup was great tonight for the Celtics, and for all those people saying the Celtics need Drummond, this is a wild night to say they need Drummond after all 3 centers on the Celtics had an amazing night.
Yeah, it is true. They did all play great, and except defensively, of course, what we're talking about. Because I think when people say that tonight, what they're frustrated with is how Capela killed them on the glass. Not so much what those guys did offensively. Because Tice and Thompson were great offensively, and Williams was really good too. He got in the stat sheet, but it's not. Capela still dominated him as well. So I mean, this is the thing with Williams is he gets a few blocks, he gets a few steals, and we throw our hands up in excitement, but on, 60% of the plays, he's in the wrong spot,
Yeah. Williams' biggest flaw, I think by far, is, like you said, just defensive awareness. Obviously, biting up pump fakes, being in the wrong place. And it's getting better because the first couple seasons he was in the league, it was really bad. Last year, it was really bad. And he was just basically only an energy guy. And so that has really improved this season. So I'm happy about that. But if he wants to stay in that rotation, that is the one thing he has to improve upon. And that one against Jokic will just live in infamy in his career. I think that'll come back to haunt him.
And this is a nice little setup we have here because I can look down at my computer and it looks like I'm looking down at you. So it actually works pretty nicely. Look down at my computer for the stats in the chat. But Dead Fishing saying not trolling. It's a great way to get out of Kemba's contract. Well, Dead Fishing, I mean, what do you think of Kemba tonight? Because he played pretty well, And again, if we can just, and I'll pull this up in a second, actually. Actually, I'll pull it up now. Why not? Is this coming up? Let's look up. Oh, gosh, I have this huge screen here that I'm just going to get rid of because it's not going to bode well if I'm trying to type on my computer. But not looking up Jaren Jackson, which is what it looked like I was looking up right there. Let's look up Kemba Walker's stats here for a second, just because I want to see his last few games here. And you look at this, the last few games Kemba Walker has played in, 28, 17, 25, 21. Those are his last 4 games. Pretty good. I mean, in Dead Fishing, I'm talking to you, Dead Fishing. Okay, listen to this. Because Kemba's, and look at his shooting. 5 of 12, not great, but pretty good. 5 of 8 from 3, you love to see that. 9 of 18, 4 of 7 from 3. 5 of 13, 3 of 8, a little dip in there, but 10 of 16 and 5 of 8 from deep. Don't look now, but Kemba Walker's playing pretty well.
Kemba's coming back, and people forget the dude had what was it, stem cells in his knee? Like, that can't be an easy injury to come back from. The guy's got to get the ball rolling, and it looks like he's finally got that ball rolling. So I'm looking for him. He did. Dead Fishing's back in the chat. He did play well. His contract is awful. Why? You're probably one of the people who said Gordon Hayward's contract was awful too. Dead Fishing, were
you Dead Fishing when you say Gordon Hayward's contract was awful? Because now we all love Gordon Hayward, right? Gordon Hayward might be an all-star, probably not. I'm looking at the all-star reserve list; he's not really on there. But the Celtics could really use a player like Gordon Hayward right now. And if Kemba continues to play like this, his contract's not awful because he'd be well worth it.
Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. People love these signings when they happen. They have 3 bad games, or they have literal surgery, and they're trying to come back from him. People are saying trade him. Sorry, I feel like I'm attacking a little bit, Dead Fishing. You're probably a nice guy. It's just I don't get the whole trade him thing. Let him get back into the flow of things. Al Horford's contract looks just fine right now. I'd love to have Al Horford back on this team. It's just hindsight's 2020. The Gordon Hayward thing, especially, the dude broke his leg, snapped his leg in half a game into the season. He's back at an all-star caliber level now. Kemba Walker can be an all-star caliber player on this team. Just give him the chance. Let him get back into the swing of things.
And I mean, we're saying it right now. And look, I mean, we see the bad games in here, right? The 7 points, 2 of 12 against the Jazz, the 4 of 20 against the Suns. I mean, that's what you don't want to see. But those are outliers. If you look at the course of all the games we can see on this list for pretty much start of February, I think there might have been one other game in there. But, the narrative that Kemba is, broken down and, not good anymore, all this stuff, that's losing steam. It is. It really is with what he's doing here recently. So I'm excited. I really think this is a good sign for Kemba. This was obviously his best game of the season, right? No question about it. I mean, this was lights out. Going against Trae Young, who I think Scal even pointed out at one point, he doesn't want to guard anybody tonight. When he was, I don't know if you saw the play, but there was one play where Semi came over, set a screen for Tatum. Tatum comes off it, and Trae Young is just lost. Trae Young is no man's land, at the free throw line, looking behind him, and Tatum's coming off the screen, just pulling up for a 3, and Trae Young's oh no, let me rush it. And kills it. And Tatum kind of pats him on the back, sorry I had to do that to you. But Trae, not the best night for him defensively or with his turnovers. Do you know how many turnovers he finished with? I don't know. I know he had 5 at halftime, but
who is this? Trae?
Yeah, Trae. I mean, he put up some nice offensive numbers as he always does. But
it's 6 turnovers a game.
6 turnovers. So he actually limited in the second half. But obviously those other things are what kill him, in his game. So, and what ultimately kills the Hawks, keeps them from being a winning team. But that was good to see from Kemba Walker. And as I mentioned, I mean, look at the kind of efficiency from all these guys, limiting the turnovers, which was key. 3 from Kemba, 3 from Jalen. Where's Tatum here? I Tatum at 6. That's not good. I missed Tatum having 6, but what I was going to say before. But as far as the shooting goes, 10 of 21, 6 of 12, 10 of 16. They were all really good tonight. I mean, only one one bad thing was when I saw is that Tatum the Tatum turnover, and actually the Tatum plus minus too, when compared to everybody else in the starting lineup, wasn't good either. But even still, a really good night from all those guys, and the best night they've had in a while. So do you think the double big lineup might be here to stay? Because we mentioned it off the top. I mean, look at these numbers. Tice 7 of 9, Thompson 8 of 9, 14 points, 17 points. They were good tonight offensively.
I mean, the double bigs.
By the way, it was what I said to you at the beginning. I said I was worried about it offensively, and they both played great out there.
Yeah, and ironically enough, I think a lot of people took issue with their defense rather than their offense tonight, which is just the opposite.
That was an issue too, because it was hard to guard. Hard to guard. Like I mentioned that too. Like Tice is a great switchable center, but when you make him have to guard those wings all the time when he's at the 4, it's a different story. And when you're playing against a traditional 4 against John Collins, it's a little different, right? Because Collins is a guy that's not going to be not as mobile as most of he's not as mobile as if put Tatum at the 4 or something. Like he's not mobile, one of those guys. So it's easy for Tice to stay with a guy like that. It's more when you have the 3 playing the 4 that is where it really scares you to have Tice out there. But I mean, so for that reason, they didn't really have to worry about it as much defensively, although Capela killed them both. But is a totally different issue entirely with the fact that they're not that they don't have that much size. Although Capela's 7 feet, he's just an athletic freak, which those guys aren't. But even still, like I said, offensively they killed it.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I think double bigs can work. I think this is kind of what Brad Stevens envisioned at the start of the season, although I don't think it'll last long. I think when Mark is back, I have to assume he'll be inserted into that starting lineup. So I'm not sure. We got Dead Fishing back in the chat. Dead Fishing's Andre Drummond burner account, I swear, dude. Tice Drummond would be a good double big combo. They can let Tice play stretch 4. I don't think Tice Drummond would be any better than Tristan Thompson Drummond. I think Thompson and Drummond are extremely comparable players, if I'm being honest.
And by the way, just talking about Pritchard, I mean, just wrapping it up. Obviously, we mentioned Rob already. 12.7 rebounds, 4 blocks, 2 steals. Stuff in the stat sheet in only 16 minutes. Then Pritchard, 17 minutes, 0 of 7, minus 18, worst on the team. And we talked about him earlier, people getting on him, but this was his worst game as a Celtic. And we're not going to go overboard with it, but let's talk about it because he was bad tonight.
Who is that you're talking about? Sorry, I missed.
Peyton Pritchard, 0 of 7. 0 of 7, 0 points.
I think it's just a rough night. Like, people have rough nights. Obviously, we can talk about trading Kemba when he has rough nights. I'm just going to give the rookie a break. It's a rookie wall. Obviously, I think he's got to get used to back playing everybody. I'm not going to rag on him. I mean, I ragged on Kemba, but not after the first one, right? Like, this is the first real off night Pritchard's had in a while, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I'll double check. Well, we can pull it up. But, I mean, look, I get what you're saying from the standpoint of, yeah, it's just one bad night. But, it's his worst game as a Celtic. 0 of 7 ain't pretty, Jack.
He's a rookie.
I know, but he is a rookie. So, we'll cut him a break. Here are his stats. 5'11", 3 of 5, 2 of 7, 1 of 5. Like, those aren't too pretty. But, these other ones are pretty solid. I just look at it and I say, yeah, he's a rookie. But to whom much is given, much is expected, whatever that expression is. The Celtics are relying on him a lot this year. So we can give him the break. Yeah, he's a rookie. And then on the other hand, say, he's very experienced rookie. He's been in college for a while, so he's, ready to go here. That's part of the reason why he's been so good early. My general point is just that, look, he had a bad night. So let's talk about the fact that he had a bad night. And look, it doesn't need to mean you want to trade him. It doesn't have to mean he's terrible. But he struggled tonight against the Hawks. He really did. It was his worst game. What do you see out there?
I mean, yeah, he got the open looks. I don't think any of them were bad looks. There were a couple possessions where I think he missed the mark on defense, I'll say, if you want to take it from that perspective. But in terms of offense, I think most of the times he was getting his shots, they were off of nice passes from his teammates. The shots just weren't falling. Get back in the gym, get back to knocking those shots down. I think it's just a rhythm thing. Hopefully it doesn't get in his head. That'll be the one thing I'll say. Like you mentioned, 4-year guy at Oregon, so I don't think it will. But if there was a time for that rookie wall to start, this would be the time that I could see it happening. But I'm hoping it doesn't.
And it's Gear with a great question in the chat, I think. With Jalen's recent knee issues, do you think he should sit out the All-Star game? And I want to throw this question at you because This was a question last year with Kemba, and even the year before that with Kyrie. It was a bit of a question with his injury thing going on. What do you think? Do you think that like ultimately Jaylen should decide to sit out this game if it is his first All-Star game?
I don't think he will, because it's going to be in Atlanta, and he's from Atlanta. So I think there's about a 0% chance Jaylen Brown sits out this All-Star game. That being said, Jaylen Brown's an extremely smart individual. So if there were to be a Celtic that was to sit out, I would say it would be Jaylen Brown. I really don't think there's a need for an All-Star game. I think you pick the teams, and I think you just give them that accolade on their resume and then go. I understand from the NBA's perspective that they want to make that money. Obviously, COVID hit them hard, so they need to make that money back, and it'll be fun. I'll watch it. It'll be enjoyable, but it's just like you go through all these safety issues at the start of the season. You're just getting back in a rhythm. There were a few positive tests last week, and boom, All-Star break's going to bring it all back. So I don't see the need, especially for all the festivities, like they're doing like stuff at halftime and in between. It's just, I think it's a bad idea. A lot of players have voiced their opinions on that as well. I think all the players will play because they don't want to get fined, but I think if they go, they're going to play.
Let's just ignore that part for a second. From Jaylen's standpoint, he has had these issues, but the thing is he's going to be a reserve. So he might, and he could even say, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. And, it's great. I'm an all-star. Woohoo. Yeah, I'm sure I'll be an all-star again in the future. My first all-star game, so I'll whoop it up. But, it would be different. I think Kemba was a starter in that game, if I remember right, wasn't he? So last year. So it was a little different for him, because he was relied on for a little more minutes than Jaylen would be. But Jaylen, he could, just go ahead and limit his minutes. And, hey, Doc Rivers is going to be coaching the game. So the Sixers coach, does he try to, mess with you a little bit and play Jaylen and screw him up? I don't think so. I don't think that's really, would be a good look in the NBA. It'd be something that, and there's, it's kind of a what should I say? I don't know, like an unwritten rule kind of thing, just a brotherhood kind of mindset of like, don't mess with a guy's, career like that. So I just think, I think that if Jaylen does play, he'll be fine. I don't think it would be a huge issue. People will make a big deal out of it. I'm sure the talk radio people will have their fun with Jaylen Brown, deciding to play in the All-Star game like they did with Kemba and like they have before. But to me, it's really not a big deal.
See, I think the only issue comes because, like, if Jaylen's getting that, I don't want to call it special treatment, but saying, I'm only playing 10 minutes, then what's stopping everybody else from saying, I'm only playing 10 minutes, which is, I think where a little bit of the concerns comes in. So I don't think Jaylen would do anything like that. Do I think it's smart?
People have done that before. I think I've seen Jimmy Butler do that before in the All-Star game. And it's just if certain players are hurt and certain players aren't, and like I said, it's not like he would otherwise play 30. He's going to be a reserve in the All-Star game. The starters are going to get, 25 minutes. Then there's 7 reserves. It's not like an NBA game where you're like, well, we don't want to play the 12th guy too much. Like, yeah, go ahead. Like, it's an All-Star, you can play him 20 minutes too. So, all the guys can get a good amount of time. So if Jaylen says, hey, you just, 10 minutes or 15 minutes is my limit, then I think he can get away with that.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. I think, like you said, he's a reserve. He's obviously not going to play a ton of minutes. I'm assuming he'll play around 10, 15 regardless of if he had asked for it or not. Same thing with Tatum if Tatum gets voted in. So I'm not too concerned with the All-Star game. Do I think they should have it? No. Do I think it's going to end up being a big deal impacting the Celtics, like in that sense? Also no. So I think it'll be it'll be fun to watch at the very least, both the Jays there, if they do get voted in.
Jack, it's Gia. This is a question for you. What are your thoughts on no Grant tonight, Jack? That's your guy.
Sad. I'm sad because I know we got Celtics fan who's a regular on Locker Room always saying that, Celtics are great without Grant. They always win when Grant doesn't play. And while that's true to an extent, I just think there's certain matchups where Grant fits better. And I think from that Hawks game, Grant doesn't fit well against the Hawks. Yeah. I think obviously when you're getting when your 3 actual big men are getting dominated in the paint, it's probably not a great idea to throw your 6'5" center out there. So Brad Stevens probably recognized that, and Grant caught the bench. I think if Grant wants to get regular minutes, he's going to have to improve as a perimeter defender, and I think that's one place he's really struggled this year. And so as much as I love the guy, I can acknowledge his flaws. He's been tough on the perimeter. He's been getting blown by a lot, And if he's going to get regular minutes on the Celtics ever, that's the one area he has to improve at.
All right, it's Gear saying, thank God Stevenson's coach in the All-Star game. Dead Fisher, keep all the Celtics away from the All-Star game. It's Gear again. Hopefully Danny didn't watch this game and change his mind about needing to make any moves. I don't think we need to worry about that. I think that they're still going to be active. Jalen and Jayson need to dish it out more. Combined tonight, Tatum, 6 assists, and Brown, 6 assists. So tonight, they did move the ball pretty well.
Oh, yeah, I loved it. And like I said earlier, it was much, much better in the first half than it was in that fourth quarter, which is why I want to see them extend that out throughout the game. But no, yeah, the ball was moving. They were trusting their teammates. Peyton Pritchard, obviously they weren't falling for him tonight, but they were falling for other guys. Semi Ojeleye made one. Daniel Tice was taking the shots. It was just a good all-around performance from the Celtics. And I think the key is that the big three played really well. So regardless of the ball movement, they were moving it to each other really well. They were throwing the lobs to the big man who all had really solid games. And so if that's the identity the Celtics want to go with moving forward, fine. Maybe they don't have to, utilize the three ball as much because they were scoring a majority of their points in the paint tonight. I don't know how many threes they made. I can look right now, but Celtics made 14 threes on the night. So it's not like they made an excessive amount, but they still got the job done. So that's what the key is for the Celtics then maybe. Just drive the paint, get it to the big men, especially when those shots aren't falling because obviously the consistency from range hasn't been there this season.
I mean, one thing I don't like to see is in a game where you're up 25 at halftime and also, 25 going into the fourth quarter, Jayson Tatum played 37 minutes. And I get it was close there at the end, but, that's on Stevens again to manage his rotations better because that should have been a game where down the stretch, you might have needed Tatum back in to save the day, but he should not have been playing 37 minutes in a game that was a blowout for, at least half the game.
I will say, I think a reason he played those 37 instead of 33 or 34 is because the lineup that was in was him. He blew it because he's the one who blew the game in the first place.
But I mean, that's not all on him either. It's the fact that those guys around him are so poor as well. And, it can't be, up to him to – we've seen this, Tatum and the bench, right? The Tatum and the bench, it's like the new band that's coming to, doing tours around the U.S. But that's the lineup Brad likes to roll out there at times and just let Tatum do his thing. And look, the problem with that tonight is just go full on bench for, when you're up 25. And then and then when it comes down to 12, which I know they weren't planning for, he was probably planning, hey, leave Tatum out there. It'll go from 25 to 20 with 5, or 7 minutes left and I can take him out and I'll only play 30 minutes. Well, tough luck because now you really put yourself in a bind there. I mean, that's just like I said, it's on him to manage the rotations better. You can put a little bit of it on Jayson Tatum if you want, but I'm going to put more of it on Brad.
No, yeah, and I think that's fair. I don't think Brad was intending to play him that much in the first place. I think once that lineup, and again, this is not completely Tatum's fault, but once that lineup did start to blow the lead a little bit, I think Brad was like, all right, well, if we're not going to lose this game, I need my best guys out there. So I'm sorry, Tatum, you're a part of that group. You got to keep playing it. And I'm sure at this point with all the comments in the media, I can't imagine Brad doesn't have conversation with Tatum saying are you good? I have to imagine that's happening a little on the bench, but I also can't imagine Jayson Tatum saying, nah. He's definitely saying yeah, I'm fine. Let me keep playing. So I will say Brad probably should have recognized that a little earlier, maybe because the lead was getting out of hand a little bit earlier on in the game before he went away from that Jayson Tatum in the rest lineup. Maybe you run some Jaylen Brown in the rest lineup because we have seen a little bit of success with that over the last couple of games. So I'll agree with you. There has to be some blame on Brad, but also that lineup outside of Tatum. But I will say Tatum still looked a little off tonight despite the solid stat line.
All right, it's Gear. Where do you think Romeo fits in on this team when he's healthy?
Birkin. Where's Birkin?
Birkin's there. Birkin's hanging around. We all know how much Ev loves Grant. Yeah, we know Ev and Jack have their battles over Grant. Kemba playing well. Ali, absolutely. We talked about that before, and I think Brad is challenging Tatum. Maybe that's the case. We'll go to the Romeo thing first. I think Romeo, the goal for him this year, especially with how much they're playing young guys, should be to be their sixth man or their seventh man, something like that. I think Pritchard has maybe taken up that mantle of sixth man this year. But, Tice is obviously going to be in that conversation when Smart comes back or Thompson. But, Romeo should be in that mix too. I mean, as a guy that, again, was the 14th overall pick, you see the minutes Neesmith is getting now. As a second-year player, Romeo should be shooting for those same kind of minutes and, trying to make an impact. If not offensively, at least defensively, because he has the chops to do that.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I really like Romeo. I'm not going to agree with dead fishing here again. I feel like we're having a battle here. A nice spot at the end of the bench. I think he'll get some rotational minutes. I think the way Neesmith has been playing, that might be where the minutes come from. They'll probably challenge each other for those minutes. Could both of them work together well? Yes. I think Romeo definitely is going to have to get himself back into lineup though, because even last year he didn't play a lot. So this was going to be the first year of, maybe a lot of Romeo minutes. And as much as it sucks, maybe that waits till next year. I don't know. It's going to be tough for him to earn minutes in this lineup, though. So I'll agree with you, dead fishing, in that aspect. But I do think he'll get his chance.
All right. And last thing we're going to talk about, I'm going to go all the way back. I don't even know if he's still here. But Sebastian Perez, way back in the beginning, who should they target with the TPE at the trade deadline? So I'll throw a few names at you. I think that there's certain guys out there, Vucevic, Julius Randle, who have played themselves out of being in that conversation at this point. Too good to really be considered targets for the Celtics. But there's some other guys who, I know a lot of people out there like Thaddeus Young, Victor Oladipo, I know you like a lot. Harrison Barnes, Evan Fournier, I mention a lot. So, who out of that group do you really, really like? I think Thaddeus Young is a guy we haven't talked about a lot, but there's a little underground, rumbling from a lot of people around the Celtics, at least Celtics fans, I should say, and Celtics people that follow them that really like Thaddeus Young.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Thaddeus Young on this team. Do I think he's maybe not the best option? I'm not sure. I prefer Harrison Barnes, if I'm being honest. I think that wing depth would be a little better, especially if you're going to go with the double bigs, because then you're just adding another big to the mix. And I understand you could run power forward, Tad Young, and then two bigs off the bench, but that would still give you four big men to be running. Jeremy Grant's another good idea. It's gear. I think the asking price might be a little too high for the Celtics to deal with. My top target's probably going to be Harrison Barnes, because as you see the Kings slowly slide down the standings in the West, I think he'll become more and more available as they want to move through, building through Tyrese Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox. Great young core in Sacramento, by the way. So I think a guy like Harrison Barnes could be more free at the trade deadline, especially since the Bulls are low-key competing for a play-in spot at the moment.
Jack, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I really don't. Thaddeus Young, he's one of the best players of all time.
I know exactly what you're about to pull up right now.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just saying, Thaddeus Young, there he is, Thaddeus Young, comparing him to Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and Thaddeus Young. I mean, this guy could, hey, if you bring this guy in next to Tatum Brown, and obviously this is kind of a funny graphic, but I know we like these weird stats. They're fun to look at sometimes. But I think the real fun thing about Thaddeus Young that this paper points out is just his versatility, how many different things he can do. He's a great glue piece.
Yeah. No, I think Thad Young would fit really well on this team. Like I said, I prefer Harrison Barnes, but I would by no means complain if they traded for Thad Young. I think that'd be a great move from Danny.
And we talk about so if you had to rank them, you rank even just the four guys I mentioned: Fournier, Barnes, Oladipo, and Thad Young. How would you rank those guys in terms of your wish list?
Tough. That is tough. I need to see the contracts, but without seeing that, I'll probably go Oladipo, Barnes, Tad Young, Fournier, because while I do think you need that shooting of Fournier, I think it's important to keep that defensive aspect of the Celtics in mind. And I think that Fournier, while he's not a ball-dominant guy, I think the multifaceted tools that the other three bring might be a little more valuable to the Celtics.
And Thad Young's a guy that, probably would come on the cheap. His value is not the highest right now. That's part of the reason why I like him. I think Harrison Barnes is going to be, of those four, probably the most expensive. Then you're looking at Oladipo, maybe the second most expensive, Fournier and Young. So I think that's part of the appeal of Thad Young, and I do think he fits really well there. Might even be a great mentor for Grant. I know a guy that you love. He could end up being someone that Grant can learn a lot from, and a guy that is a little more athletic than Grant was, at least when he was back in the prime. But can do. It was tasked with doing a lot of the same things.
No, yeah, I think he'd play a great role there. I see Horford in the chat. I'd love Horford on this team. I think he might be one of my top options for the Celtics. You trade Tristan Thompson at a first. Sam Presti loves his first. I do that deal in a heartbeat. Al Horford's back to the center of the Celtics. I think that'd be amazing. How tall is Thad Young? 6'7", if I had to guess. I can do some quick research, but
I have it right here. He's listed as 6'8" on Basketball Reference, but we all know that you get an inch or two in the NBA. So
of course. No, yeah, I think Trae Young would be solid. Any of those guys you mentioned, I'd be more than happy with the Celtics trading for. Al Horford might be a little bit more unattainable. Well, he does fit into that trade exception. His contract is very long, so he makes like 27 and a half, and then 14 and a half because it's partially guaranteed. So,
and Sebastian, we mentioned Vucevic. I think we both think Randall and Vucevic have kind of played themselves out of that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Vucevic maybe less so than Randall, but I do think 24 points a game, 11 rebounds. That the asking price from Orlando is going to be super high. So,
yeah, I think so too. All right, Jack. I think that's going to be it for the post-game show. I think we ran how long here? About 50 minutes on the post-game, filling in for Ev. Thank you guys for sticking around with us. We are not Ev, but together, together, I think we make up the difference. At least we get close, But Ev obviously puts on a great show. We try to fill in for him tonight. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Jack, for joining us last minute. We got Jack on last minute. So Jack, appreciate you coming on and doing the post game show with us.
Of course, anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, thank you for joining. Make sure to subscribe to the Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel down below if you're watching. It's probably right over. Jack, can you do the pointing for me? Actually, it's right below you. Actually, over there. So if you point, you're probably a little more to the side. Actually, you just no. Something like that. It'll be over there somewhere. So if you want to hit the subscribe button, the like button is Jack. You want to hit? I think that's in the kind of same. No, it's somewhere below Jack is the like button. So just make sure you hit that too. Subscribe, especially subscribe for if you are. You know what? Even just subscribe and you can unsubscribe later, but you'll make us look good if you subscribe now. Because that way I will be like, wow, they did a good job. They got some subscribers too. So if you do that, that would really help us out, and we'd look good to Ev, and he won't fire us for ruining his post-game show. So that would be great. And guys, just check out Guy Boston Sports on Twitter too. Everything we post over there. Follow Jack on Twitter at JacksonNBA. Follow me on Twitter at ByKJoel. Check out Bannertown USA as well. We're gonna have the recaps up there of the game. Obviously, play of the game article coming soon as well. And soon, whenever. Thank you guys for sticking with us for the whole time. And Celtics back over 500 for now, Jack. We'll hope it stays that way.
For now.